Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Chats con Sabor. I am Joanna, here with my beautiful hosts,
Linda and Yvette.
and today our topic is going to be let's talk about sex. So this one's going to be a two-part uh, chat, so come and join us and let us know what you think.
That's right. And I think this is very funny, at least to me. This is Linda, and my background it's so mixed because coming from Venezuela, went to Catholic school. My parents are divorced. Then my dad's side of the family, he's a pastor. So I come from a background where talking about sex is taboo, and quite frankly, doing a podcast where we're speaking about sex, I'm cringing over here, okay? I'm like, are we? Why? But okay, let's do this.
Cringing. That's funny. Okay, so yeah, let's explore that a little bit then.
For sure.
So growing up, Latinas, obviously, many of us grew up. We were raised Catholic. I know I was, and as you mentioned, sex was kind of a taboo thing. I had it a little bit different, where my mom was a single mom, and she and I actually, I thought. Growing up, I thought that she and I had like good lines of communication open, and that she pretty much talked to me about anything and everything, right? But then of course, growing up, as I went into young adulthood, I realized that no, I didn't know that much, and so I kind of depended on my friends, my peers. So I don't know, what do you think the stigma is, or one of the stigmas about sex and talking about it and being open with our parents, and why in the Hispanic community it's so kind of like
Closed off.
hush hush? Yeah.
I think there's a lot of levels when it comes to that. I think there's a level of, and I'm going to go really dark here, but I think within the Hispanic culture, there is a little bit of a tendency. I mean, obviously, with generation has gotten better, but I think within our old generations, there was almost like common knowledge that you didn't speak about, where the adults touch the kids. What I'm saying, like the uncle, the grandfather, the somebody, and I think part of the reason why in the Hispanic community, right, it has taken us so many years and so long to actually walk away from those old school tendencies, because I think that comes from any generation, any background, where they used to marry 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds to grown 50-year-old men. So I think this idea of men being sexually attractive to young little girls is something that's been carried along for forever in all kinds of backgrounds. It's still happening in Middle East and things like that, right? So I think part of the reason why in the Latino community is being talking about sex is something that it stays quiet, is because there's a part of shame that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because as women, we don't want to talk about it, because we don't want to talk about who has touched us or what has happened in the past that technically nobody should know about. Right. And which is one side about that. And then the other aspect of that is, we as women, we were taught, right, and we're mentally trained, you have to pleasure the man. It's not about you.
Yeah.
Your job is to pleasure him and to give birth to a bunch of kids. I mean, let's be honest.
That's true.
But it's factual. That's factual, especially when you grow up old school, and that's coming from Linda, who's in her 30s, and I mean, Yvette and I are 40s, 50s, and we grew up a little bit even more old school because we're further back. We're 10 years back from her, and I totally agree. I think if there was more education in the Latin community from a child up to adulthood, I think most of these things can be prevented with education.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So right along those lines, can you give examples of how you're doing different or you've done different, we have done different, like with our children, because we have grown children, but you have younger children. So what are we doing differently with that generation? I know for myself, I've been talking to my kids very openly about sex and about, teachers touching you. Like my son is very handsome. I mean, and I'm not just being biased, but or maybe I am a little biased.
Oh no, he's cute.
Super handsome, and as a little boy, he was so cute. And his kindergarten teacher, his pre-K teachers, young girls, in their early 20s, and oh my God, he's so cute. And I mean, I hate to say, that anything would happen or could have happened, but at a very young age, I made sure that I talked to my children about stuff like that, and about their body parts, and, not to be ashamed, and what their body parts were called. Because I remember growing up, nobody ever told me. My mom didn't tell me about my body parts. I mean, I remember just completely like off topic, but starting my period as a young girl, running inside thinking I was dying. Unbelievable. Take me to the hospital, basically, because nobody talked to me about that stuff.
So Yvette thought she was dying. We got celebrated. My grandma called me. My aunt called me. You're a woman. I mean, that was insane. Like, no. And with me, I got my period literally right after a health class where they were teaching you how to put on pads and how they were teaching you how to put on tampons and stuff. And I'm like, and then I go home and I sit on the toilet and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, oh my God, I just got my period. So I go to tell my mom, thinking that's going to be a private moment between her and I, because that's what the thing, discuss it with your parents or whatever. She's like, oh my God, you're a woman. And then it was like phone call after phone call after phone call. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't look good. This doesn't feel good. So I don't know what your experience was like, Linda, but that was mine.
Oh, my experience was actually a little bit of both. So my body decided to be very dramatic. So I had very high fevers. I was shaking. It was bad. I felt like I was dying. My body just went into some sort of shock. I don't know. I remember I was 12. I was home alone with my brother, if I was 12, then he was 16. And I remember him calling my mom at work and be like, Linda, she's sweating and she's so hot and I don't know, something's wrong with her. And then my mom is like, put her in the shower with cold water. So literally they're thinking I'm having this high fever. Something's happening to me. My mom takes me to the hospital. Everything seems okay. Bring her back in 2 days if nothing changes. I go home and the very next day, boom, I wake up. I have my period. My body just needed to let the whole world know that I was getting my period. Now, I had to, first of all, it wasn't completely new to me because out of my friend group, I was the last one to get the period, right? So all of my friends went through it. Heck, my best friend got it when she was 9 and I was 12.
Wow.
So I knew about her struggles and how she was freaking out. Imagine getting a period at 9, That's crazy. I was like 4th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then I had 2 reactions. My mom, where she was like, que dramática. Like if I had control over my body, right? And she's like, here's some pads, right? And then my sister was the one that actually taught me how to put my pads and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then my dad called me and he's like, congratulations, ya eres mujer. My dad was all excited and I'm like, okay. So I had a little bit of both. If anything, believe it or not, I probably had more conversations about my body and sex with my dad than I did with my mom.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
My dad even gave me a book.
It's very progressive of your dad, though.
Yeah, for sure.
That's actually kind of cool. So circling back to how we talk about sex with our children, like in that generation, how did you approach it with your sons?
I was so open with both of them. And I mean, the one thing that I learned that I wish I knew that my mom was a little bit better with was educating me, and me not having to go to school and find out what it was to have my menstrual cycle. That when you get your period, you better be careful if you have sex and this and that. But my biggest thing was to get married a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was almost there. I was almost there. And
This close.
I was almost there. But I was 18.
Okay.
So I tried, and I thought I was going to marry the guy, but I tried.
Okay.
But the one thing my kids are 30 and 22 now at this point, and I was super open with Christian, my oldest son, and I was like, XYZ. My youngest son, Sean, I was like, XYZ. So I was very clear because I wanted them to break that chain of events because my mom was 16 when she had me.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19 when I had Christian. And I wanted them to be so educated that they wouldn't make that same mistake. Wrap it up, making sure that your girlfriend or your partner's on birth control. Like, be sure that you want to bring a child into this world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Always wear a condom. I used to tell my
But it's true, like, wrap it up. It's not just condoms, it's diseases too.
Yeah.
Because you don't,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, girls, but at a young age, we are super fast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're ready to go while the boys are still trying to mature. And they're going through their hormone stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not as aggressive as we are
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to a certain point, especially
Yeah.
nowadays.
Not just that, nowadays we have options, right? Have the girl condoms and stuff. It's no longer just up to the guys to take action.
Yeah, that's true.
We can be ready to.
I guess the question is, Linda, since your babies are the youngest, how are you going to handle this?
Well, you see,
Your
yes,
oldest is 9.
my
right?
oldest is 9,
Yeah.
but you guys have to keep this in mind. Yes, my kids are 9 and 3. Okay. But I raised my stepdaughter, I raised my stepson, and I had a foster daughter for full time, every holiday, everything. At the very least for 7 years. So with my stepdaughter, I was the one that had the conversation with her about what it is your period, and I had a mental rule because of my church background, right? I actually fell in love with youth ministry, and given the fact that my dad is one of the pastors of a church and all these things, all my high school years, basically, mostly like 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And then after my college years, I spent many years with the youth, with middle school, with high schoolers. That was my thing. So guess what? When I became a stepmom, we're talking about 2012, 2013. Back then, I already knew that middle schoolers were having sex. Why? Because these kids from church will confine in me and, talk to me.
Wow. Yeah.
So the moment that I became a stepmom, I already knew that kids in middle school were having sex. So guess what? My rule, which quite frankly nowadays I've come to find out, it might be a little late.
Mm-hmm.
But my rule was the summer before middle school, we sit down and we have the conversation. And then we keep open lines of communication about this and that. Because to me, that was a threshold. I know that if very likely they're going to get their period that first year of middle school for the girls. And then not only that, but pornography, all these different things. In middle school, they're already seeing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number one rule. I want to talk to my kids, start the big conversation, right? The summer before middle school. That way I know, because in elementary, even though kids may know about it, it's still taboo, right? Like, we don't talk about that. No, because it's true. In elementary, you should not know about sex.
Right.
So they're not going to talk about it in school unless, they're very close friends and they spend a lot of time together, things like that. Mm-hmm. But in general, you can feel safe with your kids not knowing about sex in elementary, up to a certain extent. But middle school, that's it. It's gone. Kids are ruthless. They don't care about what your mommy told you or what your daddy told you or how you feel. They're bad, they're mean, and they just talk about anything.
Right.
So to me, that's number one. But even then, my son Logan, he's not in middle school yet. And even though I have not had the sex talk with him, guess what? We are talking about private parts.
Sure.
Nobody touches that. And you keep that to yourself. And that's not a toy. Oh, not yet. We don't play with that. Nobody
yet.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't play with that. Nobody should be playing with it. Nobody should be sticking fingers anywhere. So I do have that conversation every once in a while. I ask him, And not only that, but I always ensure him, hey, even though that shouldn't happen, if it does happen, you can tell me.
Mhm.
You're not gonna be in trouble. I do lie, I have to be honest, and I say whoever does it is not gonna get in trouble.
Mhm.
Why? Because if it's a family member or a friend doing it, if they know that they're gonna get in trouble, as a kid with a gentle heart, they might not want to snitch because they don't
Right.
want that person to be in trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I will say that I do lie to him and I say, you're not gonna get in trouble. That person's not gonna get in trouble, just because I want him to feel comfortable letting me know if something happened.
Right.
Now I do make it clear if somebody touches it, your booty, your pee, whatever, it shouldn't happen.
Mhm.
It's not right. It's never be okay with it. So I do make that clear. But I do try to kind of give the benefit of the doubt about that person getting in trouble because I want them at this age, I don't want them to be manipulated
Right.
to where they don't feel comfortable telling me what happened because my uncle's going to get in trouble or my cousin's going to get in trouble or my teacher's going to get in trouble, whoever it is.
And they feel bad.
And they feel bad
guilty.
for them. Exactly. So in this age, which like I said, he's 9, that's what I'm focusing on.
Okay.
Your private parts are yours. Nobody should touch it and let me know.
Yeah.
Open line of communication is key, but it is starting in elementary. I think I've told you guys about what happened with my grandson. He is in kindergarten, and they had a hiding spot, and they would go, and this little girl who was older than him
Mm-hmm.
was kissing him and touching him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and mind you, it's what they see at home,
Right.
but it could also be something that has been done to her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my fear came in for not only my grandson, but for that little girl. And my advice to the parents were, you need to talk to the teachers. You need to let them know that there's this hideout or whatever they called it, and this is what's happening. Because not only is it bad for my grandson, but it's also bad for that little girl because whatever she's seeing at home is spilling over to school, and she's thinking that it's okay to do to someone that's younger than her.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's in the 2nd grade, he's in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you protect him and protect his innocence?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if that was the biggest push, is like, you need to have a conversation with the school, with the teachers there, and the school needs to have a conversation with the parents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they need to be aware that whatever they're doing at home is now spilling into school.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I was in 5th grade when I had my first French kiss. My first real kiss. And what we did at my elementary school, which, you just reminded me that that's what happened. Literally the whole, not the whole school, but at least the, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, when we found out that, so-and-so liked somebody, or you had to prove to the school that you weren't, that was your boyfriend or that was your girlfriend. And so people would they would gather around and watch you guys make out. Well, that was my first, of course I was terrified. I'm in 5th grade. I was terrified and literally worst experience ever. Of course. I remember it like it happened yesterday. And I can like picture myself in my elementary school.
Like a puppy kissing you?
Yeah. Literally. He was like, well, maybe I can't even consider it my first French kiss because he was like making out with my chin. He was making out with my chin. Yeah. And I remember his name too. I will not say it.
So it wasn't a French kiss. It was a chin kiss.
With a little tongue action.
It was a doggy kiss. That's what we're going to call it. Yeah. Crazy. But I mean, yeah, everything is starting so young. So I feel like parents just need to make sure that they're keeping that line of communication open and being that safe space, for their children to come to.
Not just that, but take the precautions
right
to protect your kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because something else that has been blowing my mind. Like you said, I'm 32, but I have a little bit of an old school mentality. My son is in 4th grade. He's 9. He does not have a phone. But guess what? Half of his classroom does.
Yeah, my kids did. Yeah,
You know, in
I'm guilty of that.
fourth and fifth grade elementary.
Yeah.
So, whatever, you have the phone, but are you taking the precautions that your kids do not have access to porn on the phone?
Yeah.
Well, mine were flip phones. So.
Yeah, well, different time.
We didn't have smartphones.
Different.
Yeah.
Well, let me
They couldn't surf the net yet.
Well, but hold on. True. But I'll tell you this, because of my stepkids, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where trust was broken, and we went and we got flip phones for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? Nowadays you can still get a flip phone, guys. So
that's a big thing now.
So anyway, so I got
for different reasons.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I got flip phones for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? They have a way to browse the internet nowadays.
On the flip phone.
Yes, it looks pixelated.
But it's there.
Wow. But I'm talking about the Nintendo Switch.
Oh yeah.
The iPad. Like there's
even the PlayStation,
Roblox one where you go into certain rooms.
Yes.
And
listen. In Roblox, I've actually seen videos where they're trying to have like, it's not sex, but you can totally. My reflexes are good, are they not? I almost dropped something, guys, but it's okay. Just like I dropped it, I picked it up. Same motion.
And you didn't know until she told you.
Well, you knew because he meant what?
Exactly.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, so that's a whole other aspect about what are we doing to break things, break the generational aspects. Because let me tell you something. I remember myself as a 10-year-old. I don't know if it was like HBO or something like that, but do you guys remember how back in the days after midnight certain channels would play very spicy stuff?
Oh yeah,
because that was adult time. You know?
Exactly.
We're supposed to be in bed.
Exactly.
I would get up, run to the TV, turn it on, and be like, "Oh yeah." I'm just saying. I was curious.
It's true, but just like we were curious.
They are
too. Yeah, so guess what? If we're putting a phone, if we're putting a tablet, we're putting whatever in front of them.
Yeah,
they have questions.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because I want to say that's almost like a generational thing. It's forever and ever thing. Kids are always afraid to talk to their parents about any, taboo or any type of spicy conversation.
Yeah.
And even as an elementary or middle schooler, even if you've been trying to keep lines of communication, they might still feel a little iffy about it. Yeah. It won't be until high school when they're a little bit more in their own minds. They're no longer so
more secure.
Exactly. Then they'll be like, you know what? Let me go talk to my mom. Let me go talk to my dad.
Yeah.
Why? Because then in high school, they're start realizing who the fake friends are, all these different things. And then they're starting to trust you more as somebody that can make good decisions, even though you've been raising them forever, right?
Even though I kept them alive for however many years.
I know, trust me, I know. So
my kids tell me way too much stuff, and I'm like trying not to vomit.
So do mine, but I'm glad that they do, because the little tidbits and when I opened that door when they were so young, I feel like it led into and it grew into them being able to come to me and talk to me about anything. I mean,
for sure.
I have 2 girls and a boy, right? So my son, he definitely gives me way too much information sometimes.
Telling the boys.
But my daughters too, now they're at the age, they're grown. All my kids are grown. So my daughters too, they come to me and they ask me questions and they say, hey mom, this and that. I know my daughters very intimately, let's just say, but I'm glad that I can be that safe space for them. And I always told them when they were younger, all 3 of them, when they were younger, that they're going to hear so many things from their friends, from people, from TV, from shows, whatever. When you hear all of that stuff, come to me and ask me, hey mom, is this true? Is this whatever? I promise you that I will tell you the truth.
Yeah,
as difficult as it may seem for you to hear it or for me to actually say it, I will be honest with you and I will tell you the truth. And I think that's really helped to build that trust and the communicate, like I said, the open lines of communicate. And I have built relationships with each of my children differently. So, I don't know. I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that, at least, to be that knowledgeable person for them, that person that can actually tell them the truth. Because there's so much out there, so much information out there, and sometimes like shit, there's things that I don't know, and I'm like, and they tell me, and I'm like, let me get back to you, like or wow, I didn't know that, or
I think we're starting to break that chain, though.
Yeah,
and that's the chain that we all need to break. Whether you're Hispanic, you're African American, you're white, you're, it doesn't matter what race you are. You have to break that chain, and you have to start educating your kids on what it is sex is about and where it leads to. So
and
that's
at an
important.
early age, for sure.
And I think a lot of that has to do with talking about changing generational courses or things like that. I think the very foundation to all of that is your kid's voice matters.
Yes.
I think we come from a background of you say what your adult says and you have no voice and you have no opinion.
Cállate.
Yeah, until you're an adult, right?
Kids are meant to be seen, not heard.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the mistake
That's how we grew up.
Exactly. But even
El bochorno también.
But even with my stepkids, I like I said, I was the one that had not with my stepson, but with the girls, I had that conversation with them, and I have really good relationship. I mean, without going too far, my daughter's here. I mean, I'm no longer with her dad anymore. She's not really my daughter biologically, but she's here, staying with me. Why? Because we have a good relationship. I built that relationship. However, in high school, throughout those years, it was hard because even though she knew she could come talk to me, she didn't really know she can come talk to me.
Yeah.
Why? Because she felt like she was going to be judged. She felt like she was going, all these different things.
She was embarrassed.
She was embarrassed. Exactly. Like, how do I ask this question? And talking about sex, right? When she got pregnant in high school, senior year, her first comment was, "Mom, I didn't think that one time that I didn't use protection was going to get me pregnant. One time." And it's like, girl, that was the first thing I told you,
All it takes is one time.
Hey, it was one time with me 30 years later.
It was one time with me 30 years later.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But why? Because we have something else to add to that. I had that conversation with her one time.
Yeah.
But what happens if we don't continue having those conversations that follow through so what questions do you have now? What are you hearing in school? What are you curious about? That's what really matters, which is keeping that healthy line of communication of, yes, you can trust me. Yes, you can come to me, ask me, whatever questions you may have.
But then don't just leave it up to them to come to you. Like, you continue, like you said, kind of probing them and like asking those hard questions too. So that's really good.
So
like my mom says, presentar, tiene que ser presentar.
Yeah.
You gotta be in there.
It's true.
And
in front of your kid's
you
face.
Do.
Yeah,
you do
have to.
Every day, not just.
Hey, think about it. Social media, music, everything's about sex, about physical appearance, about all these different things.
All the music.
And they're all getting bombarded with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then what do parents do? Have a conversation once every couple of years.
Yeah.
Then there's no way we're going to reach our kids that way.
No, especially when they have it in their headphones and that's what they're listening to all day, all night.
But I think in the Hispanic community too, it was like I was saying, like bochorno, like with our parents, it was like they were so embarrassed to talk about it, or embarrassed if you got knocked up at a young age. It was always about the
how we looked, our actions looked on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
It didn't matter how we were feeling, the fear that we were feeling at that time, or the not being educated at that time, like it was never their fault. It was the embarrassment that we were causing to them.
Exactly.
So we need to prevent that for our kids. We need to make them feel comfortable to come to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, how about this? How do you guys feel about sex and
changing it to fun stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna say going from teaching to our own experience, right?
Yes.
How is your sex drive now, and how did it evolve with years?
Well, let's start with you because you're in your 30s, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with you.
Kick it off, Miss Linda.
Okay. All right. So, the first time I had sex, I was 19. I was trying to keep myself for marriage. I had gone to college, not college. I had gone to like Bible school and all the different things that my family was doing. And by my family, I mean like my older cousins. I was following the line, I guess, that my family had set forth for me, right? Doing all the Christian and religious stuff, which I was happy to do and I enjoyed it very much. But then I came back from Puerto Rico where I did my Bible school and whatnot, and I came back. Which I'll be honest, not about sex, but it was a lot of a culture shock going from fully devoting myself to the Bible and spreading the word of God, we could say, to coming back to reality, to being a full time college student and a worker. We'll leave that for another topic, for another podcast.
Yeah.
But that was crazy for me as it was, because I feel like it was two different worlds, that the one where I came from and the one that I came into, right? And I lost my virginity to one of the youth leaders from my church.
Ay, caramba.
Spicy, spicy.
Uh, um, I'm sure we'll get more into that in another time, or maybe part two. But that was my first experience, which it wasn't a bad one. I will say it was. I honestly it was one of those things where I knew that I was at an age where I knew I was going to give it up. At that point, I realized I was probably not going to make it to marriage.
Mhm.
Okay, so what made it okay in my mind, I guess, it was I wanted to be with somebody that I trusted.
Okay.
Which I did.
Yeah.
And I don't regret that much because I knew I was safe. I was with somebody that was going to take care of me and I guess lead the way because I had no idea what was happening. But I will say from there to the next following years, because I wasn't married, I was having sex under a lot of shame. There wasn't a lot of exploring what I liked, what I was enjoying, what was pleasurable to me, because everything came with guilt because I shouldn't be having sex because I wasn't married.
That's how you were conditioned.
That's how I was conditioned and what I firmly believed. So even though I was doing it, I was having a good time here and there. I never tried anything too crazy. I never tried many positions. I never, because it's just wrong, And then shortly after, I got into then became my marriage. And again, I never really explored what I liked, right? What I enjoyed. So when I walked into my marriage, I didn't know what I liked. I did not know what I enjoyed. It was awkward at times. There were times where actually I wanted to get laid, but I kind of felt guilty having that desire. I was horny. When it comes down to, I felt guilty for being horny. Basically, even though I was married. And it was weird. So I want to say that now that I've been separated for a year, I've within this year I've been able to explore and think of sex differently, I guess. Because for so many years, even when I was married, I guess I felt guilty because I felt so guilty for so many years about having sex that even within my marriage, asking for something sexually or exploring something sexually felt wrong because anything that was sexually related always felt wrong because I was not within the covenant of marriage. And then when I was actually within marriage, then I feel like I walked into the conditioning, right, from our previous generations where it's not about you, it's about your husband. So what you do is you pleasure him. So what you want and what you want to
job.
that's your job. Exactly. So to actually experience what I wanted and what I would, even because I'll be honest, there were times where my ex would be like, "Oh, let's buy a sexual toy or let's do this to kind of switch it up a little bit." I just couldn't do it. It felt wrong. It felt wrong because now it wasn't about sex was wrong. Now it's not about me. It should be about him. About what he wants and what he desires, his pleasure, his sexual fantasies. What does he? It was never about. So then it felt wrong for me to want something because I shouldn't want anything. It's all about the man,
Right.
So if I can be completely honest, this last year has been a eye opening and almost like an awakening because finally I have come to peace to say, you know what, I love to get laid. I love to have sex. I enjoy it. I want it every day. Heck, if I have a choice, I want it in the morning and I want to, I want to start the day right and I want to end it right.
It's about me now.
But that's okay.
But that's good.
Yeah.
So, there's people that are like, oh, it's because you're in your 30s, and women under 30s, they hit a peak and this whole thing. I feel mentally I've been in jail for so many years that finally now I'm like, heck yeah, let's go,
Giving yourself permission to actually feel your desires, want your wants, and then asking for what you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And being okay with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, without, whatever, I'll put it out there. Without going too far, I was having a conversation with Yvette the other day where I'm like, okay, it's the first time that someone goes down on me, and mentally I was able to sit back and say,
take me.
I'm gonna take me. I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy this.
This is for me.
This is for me. Exactly. This is for me, and it's okay for me to enjoy this. Because again, I've been conditioned for so many years to take care for somebody else, or feeling guilty about it. That, I mean, I can count with my hands how many people actually have gone down on me. Because it was always like a no.
Because of what you were
conditioned,
feeling like the guilt and that no, this is wrong, and
well,
I'm not.
A whole nother
it's
topic.
Not about me,
right? Yeah. But let's add another layer of complications into this. We're women. When we're having sex, it's more than just having sex. We have to be mentally in the place, right? We have to be free mentally in order to be able to orgasm and enjoy what we're doing.
You also have to be emotionally connected. You also have to have that chemistry with the person you're with, because you can have sex and just have sex. Exactly. Let's be honest.
It's a transactional thing.
Yeah. Transactional, yeah.
So, but the connection has to be there. And I've had this conversation with, I was going to say many men, but not many men. But I've had this conversation with someone now that I'm in, back in the dating world. And I've tried to explain this to them, and I don't think they really grasp the concept of the fact we're not really complicated, but we are complex beings. We are not like men. Sex is not transactional for us. For us, if we are in it with the connection to that human, to that other person, whether it's another female or a male, literally, we can have explosive orgasms. I mean, it can just get wild, and we really lose our inhibitions. And when we get out of our heads and feel with our beings, our souls, our hearts, when we really feel that connection, then we feel that safety of being with somebody where we can literally just let loose. Mm-hmm. And then our little wild, crazy sides, our kinky sides come out and stuff. And I think that's for all women. There are some women that, you look at them and they look like they're very innocent. But then, you talk to some guys and they're like, oh no, like she's a beast in the bedroom, because that's where she feels more safe and more confident. But she feels the connection with her partner. So, I've tried to explain that to him, and some men just don't get it. They're like, well, but what position do you like? And where do you, what do you like? Where do you like being touched? And I'm just like, it's not even about that. I was having a conversation with somebody that I'm kind of talking to right now yesterday about this. And I'm like, look up Tantra, look up tantric sex, and then you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's more of a connection. And the fact that when you can combine spirituality, sensuality, connection,
love,
mindfulness, love, actually true love, like real love, the sex is fucking amazing. Like, it's explosive. And I don't think very many people have actually experienced that.
I don't think. And I think as the older you get too, I mean, Linda, when you get to our age, you're like, what? Yeah.
It's all about me.
But I totally get, I'm in my 40s, and I think I've had the best sex of my life in my 40s. I was married for 15 years. So, and sex was good, but in my 40s, it got better because I was more in tune with me. I knew exactly what I wanted, what I needed, and what I wanted from my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't scared to express that, you know. It's not, with me, it's very emotional. It's very, there has to be that chemistry there. There has to be all of it or
Mhm.
nothing,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm sorry, but Spanish women are very, very sexual. We are hot fucking blooded, and that's just 1,000% true.
And here I thought I was crazy.
No, you're not crazy. I think it was
It's
like,
in your blood, girl.
I think when we were made, this is how we were made, and you know,
All that spice.
when you have that person you're connected to though, and you're just like, holy Moses, like you're just like, this
Mhm.
is it, then you get all of that. And you're not just getting one orgasm, you're getting, I mean,
multiple. Yeah.
we're talking about the
Back to back.
clitoris, the G-spot. We're talking about everything is hitting all at once. And
Yeah.
if you've never had, I feel sorry for y'all.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like just major when you have all those elements mixed into one. It's just insane what can happen within your body, within even with that person. I
Mhm,
mean,
mhm.
have you ever climaxed at the same time as your partner? Girl, I have. And it's the best thing in the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I have to agree. I
mean,
agree. It is the best feeling.
It's just like you are literally out of your body.
But that only happens, like, let me break it down a little bit, because that only happens when you're connected.
Mhm.
Because if he's looking at it like, okay, I'm going because I need to get her to, because I'm going, right? Like, then he's just worried in his mind about the mechanics of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not worried about, like, okay, when I do this, when I kiss her here, when I touch her here, when I, and people talk about foreplay and stuff. And we could talk about, I mean, there's an infinite amount
this
of
conversation
topics.
can go
Yes.
on forever. Yeah.
But
sure.
when we just slightly touching on just the whole like foreplay and stuff, and some men and some women, don't really like foreplay. They just want to get to it and let's go. Like, I just want you to get me there and that's it.
I mean,
Like,
that's how it was forever. But but a little bit of that came from feeling guilty for getting pleasure
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
by myself. Like, okay, I can have pleasure if you're having pleasure.
Yeah.
But why is it
Why
just
is it
about
just me?
Yeah, like foreplay feels wrong. Why?
Spot. You're putting me on the spot right now. Yeah.
I kind of feel that. I feel what you felt because I grew up in a Pentecostal family, so sex was not, like I said, I was going to be married virgin, and I was not. I have a 30-year-old, but I did think that this is the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But it's the same thing. It was like I was young. I didn't understand everything that was going on in a Hispanic. In my old school Hispanic life was very, you're going to raise a family, you're going to get married, you have to take care of your husband. I mean, when I told you old school, it was old school. And that's how I was, that's how I was raised. So that's what I thought was what needed to happen. So then I had a conversation with one of my cousins, and she started breaking down that, hey, you don't have to be stuck here. You can go and do XYZ. And yeah, you can have a family. You can do your thing later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that conversation I had with her. And I was like, I want to be, I want to be a psychiatrist. I want to help younger kids. I want them to understand certain things, and this is what I'm going to do. And I had a plan, and it was like, oopsie daisies, boop, you're knocked up. And then my whole world had to change. And then after that, it was like, you're a single mom, you're raising this child by yourself because he's an absentee dad, and then you're doing all this stuff, and then you're meeting all these different people, and you're trying to figure out who you are at the same time. You're like, well, this is what I was taught. Like, this is what has to happen in my life. I need to be married. I need to raise a family. And you start giving yourself to all these to these guys, I'm not saying 1,000 guys, you start looking for these things, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, then you're 20 something years old and you meet the person that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And then you have a family and you have everything you wanted, but you're still missing something. And I was missing something, even though I was married for 15 years, I still felt like there was a piece of me that was missing. And the one thing I can say about my ex was the fact that he was encouraging me when it came to education and stuff like that, and encouraging me to do certain things. But once he was gone, it was like I had to start all over again with who am I, what's going on, and finding those connections. And I didn't find those connections until I was 40. I was married at 26,
Yeah.
you know, and I had a kid at 19. So like, it was like, holy shit, who am I? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I got into my 40s, and then I was like, I was exploring, I still couldn't find that connection. And then when I finally found that connection, it was like, oh my God, this is the way it's supposed to be. You know? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. But you know,
awesome.
it took a whole lot of time for me to get into my 40s to get comfortable with who I was as a woman, what I wanted, what I craved. You know, the desires that I really truly wanted, that my partner is willing to express with me at the same time. I mean, to get that connection with someone is hard.
Oh yeah.
It is so hard, and we know because we've dated a lot.
I mean, not a lot.
Hold on. I'm not saying, y'all, that we had sex with every person we dated.
That's true. That's true.
In our 40s, in our 50s, and you're starting all over again, and you're meeting these guys, and you're just like,
yeah, they're all crap.
You're like, okay, so you haven't grown up and you're 45 years old.
Yeah.
And you haven't grown up and you're 48 years old. Oh, and you haven't grown up and you're 55 years old. And you still think that me pleasing you is what matters. And then you meet someone that his point of view is to please you.
And that's whoa. Like Linda. Whoa. Wait,
yeah,
what?
whoa. It's like, it's that mind poof, you know, that explosion, that holy crap, there's someone that wants to be just selfless and be
all about you.
Like, you don't find that. It took me into my 40s to find that one person that is like, you're my queen, you're who I want to be with, you're who I want to please, and is not selfish about himself. You know, and everything we do together is together.
That is rare.
But let's be honest here. This is one thing that guys are missing, okay? It's so easy to make a guy come. Like, let's be real.
Because it's mechanical. It's
So at some point, man has to be like, okay, I know I'm gonna come. So let me go ahead and take care of her, because I know I'm gonna come, you know? And
well, but
not all guys are that way.
I was just gonna say, let's not discount the fact that men also have the same, you know, mental hiccups, roadblocks in their minds when it comes to like life and everything. And so sometimes that affects them physically and in the bedroom too.
Especially when they get older.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
they start connecting to emotions, chemistry, and everything starts building up. Not all men, because trust me, I've dated some guys my age, and holy shit, they don't know that connection. But, you know, they do. Like, I have a friend that even tells me, who's in his 60s, and he tells me, he's like, dude, my partner can say the wrong thing, and I'm like, yeah, that thing isn't going to work. I don't care what the hell you do. That thing is, you know, and it's him being frank. Like, when you need to have that love and that connection, that compassion, that respect for your partner. And I think the older you get, the more you start to see that in certain men, and I'm doing the air quotes. Not all, but it's like that's just that compassion, that empathy, that sympathy, that love, that respect, all that, it plays such a huge part in having great sex.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Well, and let's talk about mechanics though too, because some women don't even know their own bodies. Like,
Yeah, true.
and I will
Very
tell
true.
you, in my experience, like I really came alive when
As I'm raising my hand, this is Linda.
I came alive though, and this might help you. I came alive when I was 34. On my 34th birthday, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, what the heck do I really want? At that point, I had already been married 10 years because we got married. I was 24, I think. Got married, and by that point, we had already been married a good chunk of time, and I didn't really know my body yet until I turned 34. I woke up that morning and I will tell you, my whole world, like everything just kind of came alive for me. And I realized that my world depends on me. My reality depended all on me. I mean, I did a whole thing where I cut my hair and I dyed it a different color. And I was just, I was doing everything I could to just kind of like feel alive. Then I started exploring with toys and things like that. Before that, I knew what masturbation was because I did it since I was maybe about 13, 14, whatever.
Really? I started in my 20s. Like, I didn't even know what that shit was.
And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, but that's what I did. So anyway, I mean, that's another whole other segment, but
episode 2 coming up.
But by the time I turned 34 is where I really realized, like, you know what? I need to explore my body, because how the fuck am I supposed to expect my husband to know how to please me if I don't even know my own body?
Agreed.
So went to a sex party, where they do sex toys and things like that. So incorporated that. I was married to a man in the military, and so when he was gone for long periods of time. So I had to be able to take care of myself during those times, and so incorporating sex toys, but just really figuring out who the fuck I was as a woman, as a wife, like what made me tick, what makes Yvette tick. And I had to really figure that out. So for like 6 months after I turned 34, I really when I tell you that I figured out anyway, without getting too graphic. We're not going to put all my secrets out.
Wait to ask this question for next episode. Let me make a note on my notepad.
I took the time to get to know myself. And I do have friends who are a little bit older than me who have confided in me that they have never really, they don't know when they're orgasming. In their 50s and they don't know when they're orgasming, that's a problem. That is a problem. And it comes from stigmas. It comes from guilt. It comes from growing up. It comes from child molestation. It comes from trauma. It comes from a lot of things that we hold on to as women, as human beings, because it can happen to men too. So we hold on to things and we don't heal that part of ourselves, and we don't get to know ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, soulfully. Like everything has to be connected. Mind, body, and soul has to be connected in order for us to really experience life with a big bang.
That's 1,000% true.
Yeah.
That is factual. If you don't have all three connections, I know I'm not taking away from women and men that can go out there and slam bam, thank you, ma'am, get their nut off or get their orgasm off and be okay. But when you have that connection, there is nothing like that. And I promise you there's nothing like that. Yvette blossomed a lot earlier than me. I didn't blossom until my 40s when I started I need to figure out what it is that makes me happy as a woman, exploring, knowing this part is sensitive, knowing this thing is what I want to do, that thing is what I want to do, this is how I want to feel, I want to let my hair down, I want to wear this sexy outfit, I want to do this and that. So it took a long time for me to get to that point, but you have to find that partner that you're absolutely comfortable with.
Or even if you don't have a partner though. If you figure out who
with
you
yourself
are,
too. Yeah. Light the candles up. Get in something sexy. Freaking start touching.
For yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what it is. Linda's covering her eyes and
But it's
Just
true. It's a factual thing. Like a lot of us women don't talk about that. Like I love going to a sex party and learning what lubricant works for
sex
you.
party. I've never been to a sex party.
Oh, okay. We got it.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
we might tape it so y'all can hear it too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Lord. Well, I think it's a good time to finish up and wrap up.
Yes.
We're talking about sex. We're talking about, if I can be honest, based on me sitting here and talking to you guys, I think we're talking more about sex in this episode 1. I think we're talking about intimacy.
Intimacy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I think sex can be transactional. I think it's easier for it to be transactional for men, but there's plenty of women out there that are capable of having transactional sex.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a great conversation, a great start. I mean, I think we said it's going to be 2 episodes. It sounds like 4 at this point. But
yeah,
it's
I think
okay.
this topic can go on and on and on.
Hey, but this is what it's all about. Chats con sabor.
But
right.
we are going to leave you guys off with a positive note on this episode. So, because we have to end it with something good, something that can feed you guys just a little bit. So, I did find this today because, of course, Yvette makes us educators. So, you can learn so much by being quiet and watching. So, always make sure that you find yourself, and obviously through this conversation, you can find yourself. And just watch and listen and just encourage yourself and just learn to love yourself and know what it is that you want so you can be you. And I think that's one of the most important things that we'll learn throughout our chats con sabor, and we're just being real. And seriously, these are conversations that we have amongst ourselves all the time.
Absolutely.
So you're getting real raw conversation with us on what it is that we talk about on a day-to-day basis when we are together and hanging out. So
yeah, that's great. I love that because I really think that is the basis of it. We have to learn to love ourselves and to accept the fact that we're worthy of being loved and being pleasured.
Yeah,
absolutely.
See you guys. See you in part 2.
See you next time. Adios.
See ya.